Call Your Shot season continues to roll right along. If you've been keeping up with the show this week, we called our shots in the SEC on Tuesday, called our shots in the ACC on Wednesday yesterday, and now calling our shots for the Big Ten Conference. Now, it's very important for us to have this conversation right now. This is not prediction season as it pertains to what's going to happen at the end of the regular season and how your favorite team is going to shape up. Like, there might be elements of that baked into this segment, but prediction season is right around the corner, right after Media Days finishes up, all right? So right now, this is Call Your Shot season, which is a little more specific to players and coaches and more specific things within the season, if you will. So when it comes to the Big Ten Conference, my shot I'm calling for Ohio State is, listen, Will Howard, he's your guy. That's not really a huge surprise to the folks in Columbus, but not only is he your guy, he's going to stay your guy throughout the course of the regular season. Now, I think if you were to place a bet, you'd have wildly favorable odds for Will Howard to stay the starter in Columbus. But I think there's this thought out there that, yeah, Will Howard, he's good. How much juice does he really bring to the offense? You look in that quarterback room, you see Julian Sayin, super talented true freshman, and they were raving about him during spring practice. You see Devin Brown, who you're not 100% sure what you have in him just yet. And I think there's sort of this thought that, like, Will Howard is good, but is he the answer? And I'm just telling you, whether he's the answer or not, you're riding with him for the entirety of this season. I also think that it's important for us to mention, I do think he is an upgrade from Kyle McCord. If you've watched this show for any length of time, you know that we are dying on this hill. The experience he brings, having played multiple years of college football, whereas Kyle McCord had his first year as starting quarterback last season, and the mobility he brings, running for something like 9 touchdowns last year, is a game changer in this Chip Kelly offense. Now, this is a hunch. I can't prove this, but this is kind of baked into my call your shot when it comes to Ohio State and Will Howard. I think that the way Will Howard plays, with him running behind his shoulder pads, not afraid to lower his helmet for a first down against a safety or a linebacker, whoever it is, the way that he plays with the emotion and the fire, like, I think that's going to endear him to this locker room if it hasn't already. And I think that Will Howard will be your guy out of what I just mentioned with the experience, the mobility, and the good decision-making, but also the fact that I think he's going to win over this team. That's not to say that this team doesn't have belief in everyone else in that quarterback room, but I think that Will Howard is going to make it evident this is his team. And I think that he is. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. If you have had some Will Howard slander on your social media pages and you have taken part in that, there's still time to go use that delete button. It's a great tool. Go delete that tweet, delete that take, and save yourself from the Will Howard receipts that are about to be, I think, in full effect here post 2024. Another shot we're calling for the Big Ten. Oregon first year in the conference, right? Everyone's wondering now for these new teams outside of the Big Ten as well, Texas and OU in the SEC, Washington, USC, UCLA also joining the Big Ten. How are they going to acclimate? And I think most people have a pretty high level of confidence for Oregon their first year in this new conference. But I'm going to tell you what, man. I'm going to take it a step further past Oregon just being good and competing for a Big Ten championship, which would be massive and probably falls in line with this take or this shot we're calling right now. I think Oregon, their first year in the Big Ten Conference, will have the best offense in all of the Big Ten. That includes Ohio State. That includes Michigan. That includes Wisconsin. Y'all know I love me some Wisconsin now. I'm very partial to our folks out there in Madison. But I think that Dylan Gabriel, his experience, his skill set, the skill players around him with Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson in the backfield and the offensive line and the tackles, like, I love the way this team is built offensively. And then the scheme itself is really what ties this whole thing together. You can have good players, but if you don't have a good strategy as to maximizing that talent, like, what are we doing here? Last year, Oregon's offense averaged 41 points a game with Will Stein as the OC. I don't know what the future holds for Will Stein, but I'll tell you this. I think he's going to be a name that comes up in a lot of head coaching circles and head coaching searches here in the not too distant future because of what I believe they're going to do yet again in Eugene offensively. I think that Dylan Gabriel and his experience factor will just kind of help accelerate the cohesion process with some of those new pieces on the offensive side of the football, most notably Evan Stewart. I'm excited for this, man. I'm very, very excited for this. It's like, when it comes to Dylan Gabriel and his experience, it's like whenever you go to your favorite restaurant or you go to a restaurant in a genre of food that you enjoy, period, you know what you're looking at. Like, I go to a Mexican restaurant, I know what I'm looking at when it comes to fajitas or enchiladas or like I know what I'm getting myself into because I've been fortunate to go to a lot of Tex-Mex restaurants. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel playing college football. When he walks out there, it could be a different defense from a personnel standpoint, but schematically, there's not a lot he hasn't seen, which is going to enable him to make quick decisions. That's what this offense is built off of. Because if you make quick decisions and get the football to the right players, those right players are then going to make you more right as an offensive coordinator because Tez Johnson's going to make someone miss in the open field, get north and south, score a lot of points, and wouldn't you know it, the Ducks doing a lot of push-ups. So Oregon will have the best offense in the Big Ten in 2024. I'm calling our shot. Now let's go out to Nebraska for this next one within the Big Ten. It's not a wildly bold take these days to say that Nebraska is going to make a bowl game. We think that. Vegas thinks that. I think most people that cover the sport think that. I'm going to take it a step further and say that I think Nebraska has a winning record in one-score games. Because last year, really throughout the last, 3+ years out there in Lincoln, that has been the Achilles heel. I mean, it has just been the thorn in their side. Last year, they lost 5 games by 1 score. The reason why I think Nebraska will be able to get over the hump in those 1-score games, I'm buying the DNA of this Matt Rule football team. And anyone that's watched this show for any period of time, you know how I feel about Matt Rule and his process and the way that he does things. Detail-oriented. And when I say detail-oriented, I'm talking about which shorts you're wearing to practice. Do you have the right mouthpiece? Do you have your jersey on the right? Like, all those little things. It sounds lame. You're saying, JD, having the right mouthpiece makes a difference on 4th and 1. Yeah, it does. It does. Because, again, those of y'all that listen to the show, you know, if I can trust you to do the little things right during the week, on and off the field, then I can also trust you in that big-time play on 4th and 1 to make the right decision, to execute your assignment, to be there for your teammates, to allow us to dominate those little moments. And the little moments now that make the big moments, which ultimately makes up the ball game. So that plus Dylan Raiola, plus what they bring back on defense, I'm buying stock in Nebraska. I think you should too. But when it comes to 2024, calling our shot, they will have a winning record in 1-score games. Matter of fact, let's take it a step further. I don't think they'll lose a 1-score game. Yeah, get a little bit crazy. Not hot taking here. We're just telling it how it is, telling it how we see it going in 2024. So go ahead and book that one. This is probably my favorite shot we're calling if it ends up being the case for what it would mean for college football, like from a health standpoint of the sport. Because y'all, I mean, I've said this a lot. Like, I'm not excited about the expanded playoff per se. I'm excited for the games. I'm excited for it to get here. I'm excited for us to have a lot of football to watch. But like, I am a little bit shuffling my feet here because I like the 14 playoff. But it is what it is. I'm very grateful to have a job and cover the greatest sport in the world, and the 12-team playoff will still be fun. But my concern was always, what does it mean for the rivalry games? And as I look up and down the schedule for Michigan and Ohio State, I truly believe that Michigan will go to Columbus when they play Ohio State with their Big Ten title hopes still intact and their college football playoff hopes still intact. Now, I also think that Ohio State will hold up their end of the bargain. They may or may not be playing for their college football playoff hopes at that point in time. They could be a one-loss team, but even so, look at Michigan. They're the team that everyone's telling you is going to fall off the face of the earth. The returning production numbers aren't super exciting. New head coach, new quarter, like a lot of newness there with Michigan, right? So a lot of us are saying, new must equal bad. Not necessarily. You look at the schedule, Texas will be a really good test early on. They come to Ann Arbor. I mean, Texas brings back a lot from last year's squad, most notably their quarterback in Quinn Ewers. You're going to figure out a lot about your team in that game. Now, however, that doesn't impact your Big Ten title hopes. So whatever you think about that game, yes, it impacts the college football playoff standings, but it doesn't impact the Big Ten standings. Now, Oregon, let's be real, they're going to be really, really good. In fact, as we sit here today, I would probably lean Oregon to, at the very least, be in that conference title game, if not win that conference title game. Take of that as you will. So let's just say that that game is a tough one. Let's say that there's a chance Michigan loses that one. Not predicting it, just saying let's say that ends up being the case. Everyone outside of those two games, I think Michigan is good enough to roll the ball out there and beat. Now, they still have to do it. They still have to have the roster translate the way that I think it will translate when it comes time to actually play football. But I'm looking at the pieces here like, I know Jim Harbaugh's not there, but he did not leave just an empty cupboard for Sharon Moore. Also, Sharon Moore was in charge of helping stock that cupboard. Sharon Moore understands what they have on the roster. He understands the guys they've been developing that didn't start last year but are going to help them in big ways this upcoming season. So I really like Michigan. And if they walk into that game at 10-1, 9-2, they will be in the neighborhood of competing for a Big Ten championship yet again and for going to the college football playoff yet again. The reason why I love this, the reason why this means so much to me, not because I have any fanhood for Michigan or Ohio State or anyone else, because as a college football fan, I believe that Michigan-Ohio State is the creme de la creme of rivalries. Like, you probably put Army-Navy in a separate category, but like having been to both of those, Michigan-Ohio State, special, man. Very, very special. And so as much juice as we can possibly put into that game, all the stakes, all the marbles, I loved when we were there for a college football playoff spot more or less on the line. That's what really gets the juices flowing and really makes instant classics when you talk about the great Michigan-Ohio State games of the past. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're calling our shot. We'd love to see that one. Last shot we're calling here in the Big Ten. Let's go with another newbie, huh? USC, welcome to the party. Welcome to the Big Ten. Hope you got your line of scrimmage in order. I know the folks in LA are hoping so as well. The shot we're calling here is that defense, yes, the defense that's been scrutinized, picked apart, made fun of, left for dead. They brought in a new defensive staff. Danton Lynn. He's got a pretty good pedigree, pretty good track record when it comes to defensive football. I'm saying that USC improves defensively by a full touchdown. Now, the good news is improving by 7 points is a pretty sizable stride. The bad news is if you were to improve by a touchdown in your USC, you go from letting up 34 points a game to right around 27 points a game. So it's not phenomenal. You know, it's a good step in the right direction. It doesn't necessarily solve all your problems, but I think it does put you into the category where you say, okay, what can the offense do for us? Because if you're letting up 34 points a game, I mean, we saw it last year. You had the Heisman Trophy winner from a season ago playing quarterback for you. Didn't make a difference. He was consistently having to be the equalizer instead of being your edge. So if you go to allowing 27 points a game, still not great, but with the way that I think a Lincoln Riley offense could look their first year in the Big Ten, and Miller Moss going to ask a lot of you that first year in the Big Ten, your first year starting quarterback, going to need it. What does USC look like? I think that changes the conversation we perceive them to be in the Big Ten Conference. I'm not calling my shot for them to win the whole deal. I'm not calling my shot for USC to have a top 10 defense in the country, but I do think that real, tangible, visible, something you can touch, feel, look at every single Saturday is going to be, improvement is going to be real for USC. If you can improve on defense, again, I'm just saying, I think you have a chance now anytime Lincoln Riley is your head coach and helping with the offensive side of the football. Last thing I'll say here on this shot we're calling on USC, I want to make sure I don't say this incorrectly. My thought around USC is I don't know that the personnel is as bad as the numbers have reflected over the course of the last 2 years. Because I look at games against, let's be real here. I look at games against drastically worse talent level offenses compared to what USC should have on defense, and something's not adding up. Like Arizona State should not be able to run inside zone against us and get what they want. Arizona State should not be able to dial up X, Y, and Z pass play and catch us out of position. And so the thing for me with USC is I don't know that we ever actually got to see what the personnel was capable of because the scheme had them out of position so frequently. So am I right on that? I guess we'll see this year if Danton Lynn and that new staff out there in LA is able to make some strides and put them in better position. But Overall, I cannot wait for it. The Big Ten is going to be one of the most exciting conferences in college football, with the newbies, with the storylines around Ohio State, with Michigan and their resurgence in some ways, which sounds weird after winning a national championship, with Nebraska coming back to life. It feels like going to be a lot of fun. Calling our shot. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.